Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Wargaming History. In the studio today you have myself, Badger, and the eminent Mr.
Opus.
Bobus. So, what if the Allied made their first landings in Europe in Greece instead of Italy? And what if they done it a year earlier than the Operation Husky in Sicily, that when Allied joined the real European fight? And in this episode, we will continue on the war game in our third episode, which is the Allied landings in Europe. So,
Throughout history, we have asked ourselves the question, what if? What if Germany hadn't invaded the Soviet Union in 1941? What if the Allies had lost the Battle of Britain? What if there was no Lend-Lease Act from the United States? This is Wargaming History.
So what is this? What is this format, and what are we going to talk about?
So what we're doing here, we have set up a huge war game. We've done this during a weekend where we had two teams, one Allied team, one Axis team, which with participants controlling each and every country, controlling political, military, or everything in these countries to simulate an alternative history of the Second World War. So we have gone through El Alamein, we have gone through the first part of Barbarossa, and now we're here at the first landings, Allied landings into Europe. So we're going through this until the war ends, with either side winning.
Yeah, so what we basically done was I would call it like somewhat a feat that we managed to gather roughly 30-something history buffs in the west coast of Sweden in two houses over a weekend, exploring the what-ifs of World War II with a fit-for-purpose World War II simulation, playing out a war game over the course of a weekend. So, and now in this studio format, we're doing the analysis of what actually happened and revisit the whole war game. So in our third part, we have the Allies joining the fight in Europe and really getting their hands dirty in the grind against the Axis after El Alamein and what you said also, Barbarossa has been launched. So should we take it from the top?
Yeah, we should take it from the top. Should we start with the history, the actual history, what happened?
Yeah, give us the history lesson. And for everyone who knows history, you can skip this part. But no, maybe it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit interesting because it's some kind of some details here I don't think is commonly known. But the thing is, as you probably know, there was no D-Day or landing in Greece. But we have a setting before this, and the huge difference here, leading up to this scenario, is that the Allies have conquered Crete before the landings. Crete was a huge part of stopping any attack on the soft underbelly of Europe. Aircraft carrier in the middle of the Mediterranean, or the Eastern Mediterranean. But if we look into history, we can see that Greece wasn't that heavily defended. It was much less prioritized than like Norway, and who cares about Norway, right? They didn't have oil then. So they had around 170,000, 230,000 troops, mostly German and Italian occupation forces. In reality, the German forces was smaller, like 60 to 80,000, 1-2 infantry divisions, big infantry divisions. The Italian forces was bigger, like 80, 100,000. Was the main occupation force of Greece, but as most of you probably know, Italian forces are Italian forces, and that means poor morale, weak equipment, low organization. It wasn't the best forces. They also had some help from Bulgarian forces, 30-50,000 in northern Greece, occupying eastern Macedonia, western Thrace. Bulgaria had more morale, I would say, in this. What I have read up on, they was more ready to fight for their territory. Bulgaria has always wanted a little bit more territory in the Balkans.
Greater Bulgaria. Hashtag.
They got some more territory. They were ready to defend it. Italians are Italians. They do what they do. So, and in aircraft, there was a presence. Luftwaffe was there, 200-300 aircrafts. Bf-109s, Stuka bombers, medium bombers. So they had some presence. mostly in Crete, because Crete became a huge naval airbase for the Axis forces during the Second World War.
Not naval airbase. You mean air base?
Airbase. What did I say?
Naval airbase.
Naval airbase.
Airbase.
Airbase. Yeah, I was about to. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an airbase.
Yeah.
Luftwaffe. And of
with
course,
Kurt Student in the spearhead of that, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. And Italy also had some fighters and light bombers. But here we come again. Italy during the Second World War. The quality difference between the Luftwaffe and Italy was enormous here. This was more obsolete, war-down aircraft like the Macchi C-200, early C-202s. This is not the best aircraft with not the best possible outcomes in battle.
Are you trash talking Italian engineering now?
Let's wait until we get into Italian tanks.
Okay. Maybe not the early versions, but I mean, Italian airplanes were later. They were very good, and they also made some really good planes, but they didn't have that much, and the early versions wasn't that good, if I recall. Yeah.
No.
Anyways.
So the big difference here that we're gonna go into, they had an occupation force. In reality, not a big one, much smaller than in Norway. So 200,000 approximately, if we're gonna go that. Italian, German, and some Bulgarian troops. That's it. And they had Crete with a huge air base, with like 200-300 fighters and bombers, controlling and denying the airspace and naval routes and supply routes towards Greece. And Crete is crucial here, because with Crete, they could deny supply routes to Greece. It would be a hard sell to actually go there with troops being bombed all the way.
And I mean, Axis fought hard to get Crete in the first place. It was a really tough fight against Allied forces defending the island.
Yeah.
So that's also important to say. And as you know, just as a reference point, as we will go to the timeline in our wargaming scenario quite soon, and what happened in our wargame. But as most of you know, and I mentioned it in the intro, but the Allied landings wasn't aimed towards Greece in reality. The first European landings happened in Sicily with Operation Husky in July 1943. And that was the first main punch coming out of the Allied forces, which was then, it played, roughly at the same time as, maybe that was before, but Operation Torch in North Africa before that, and
that was before,
later Operation Dragoon, I think it was called, into southern France, roughly at the same time as Operation Overlord coming with the D-Day landings in 44. So it was like basically two big landings. The first Sicilian landing is actually a bit overlooked because it was very massive in terms of like pure numbers. But then it was shadowed by the D-Day landings coming a year later, right?
Yeah.
So, But all right.
The only thing more the stats wise, which I think you would like, I've looked into the Navy presence in the Mediterranean. So the Regia Marina, the Italian Navy, had 4 to 6 battleships operational at this time. Little bit more than the Royal Navy, having 3 to 5 battleships in the Mediterranean. We could go into cruisers, destroyers, and such things. Might put up some graphics about that. But the huge difference here are aircraft carriers, where the Royal Navy had 2 to 4 aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean during this period, where the Italian Navy had 0. And all of you following the Second World War, come in here, please, Navy.
Yeah. But also what the UK had was the aircraft carrier called Malta.
Yeah.
Where they also did successful... And I think if I remember correctly, they were very inspired by the Japanese and their strikes on Pearl Harbor. So they did their equivalent strikes on the Italian Navy flying out of Malta with their naval bombers.
Yeah.
So, but maybe I get timeline wrong now. Please harass me in the comment field. I'm taking this from memory, not from a script. So,
No.
but yeah. Anyways, but Malta played an important role
Yeah.
in the naval warfare as well.
Yeah.
In that regard. Yeah.
But the thing is with the Navy here that I want to comment on is that with Crete in Allied hands, it will be much more risky to go into Eastern Med with Allies controlling Malta and Crete. With Crete as an aircraft carrier on the Axis side, the naval balance shifts in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the outline of the historical scenario, right? At this
Yes.
point in time. So where do our scenario starts that we're going to cover today? Well, it starts with basically just before Operation Barbarossa, I would say. So Operation Barbarossa in our scenario started in June 41, I think it was.
Yeah,
like following
somewhere like that, yeah.
The exact historical date, pretty much.
Yeah.
But just before that, and I'm going to take the Allied hat on now and represent the Allied side, and you're going to be like taking intel and like the storyline a bit from the Axis side of this. So please interrupt me if you want to slip in what happened at the same time from the Axis side, and I want to follow my timeline here.
Yeah.
So the Allied High Command, and just to put you all where we are in the scenario right now. So the Allied had successfully defended El Alamein for this. The Axis had gathered a huge tank push, like a huge tank army with several tank divisions and attacking North African, Allied controlled North Africa into Egypt, but got denied basically thanks to a well-prepared defense and a strong Royal Air Force harassing the backline supply lines of the Axis forces. So they got stopped at El Alamein, and then they decided to pull out and get like their army ready for Operation Barbarossa instead.
Yes.
The Italians are still in North Africa with an incredibly big land army in not all the way back to Benghazi, but a further like in between Benghazi and El Alamein, you could say. There's like a defensive line from the Italians.
Yes.
The Allies are happy with holding El Alamein and not going out of that and attacking out, because what happened instead, and this was the Allied game plan, was to make a quick landing towards Greece. But before that could happen, they had to knock down the Italian control islands outside. So the two big prizes was Crete, thank you, and Rhodes. Yeah. Those are the two like aircraft carriers, so to speak, for the Axis in Eastern Mediterranean. So on the phase one of the attack on the Allied side was that in May, already in 16th of May 1941, the Allied forces decided to launch an invasion with 6 marine divisions. Each marine division was at this point in our wargame scenario roughly 7,000 men per division. So like quite
7,000 or 17,000?
Sorry, 17,000 men per division.
Yeah.
So like huge, like quite swollen divisions, to be fair. But they launched that invasion on Heraklion, I think.
Heraklion, I think so. I've been there.
I've never been to Crete.
Oh.
Can't even say the island name. Yeah, but they successfully managed to take it, and I think it was defended only by a few, 2 or maybe 4 Italian divisions, the island. So it was quite easily overrun. It wasn't Italian troops are not like the best troops already. This wasn't like the top tier Italian troops defending Crete. So it was quite easily overrun by the Allied forces, and then followed an invasion of Rhodes in mid-June the same year. So like 1 month after, June was Rhodes was invaded again with this from the same 6 marine divisions from United Kingdoms. And that was more heavily defended by the Italians with 5 Italian garrisoned divisions. But those, I mean, and you think about the numbers here, that invasion, it was quite swollen 6 divisions from UK, supported by the Royal Navy shore bombarding. And the defending Italians, they were garrison type divisions. So roughly 6,000 men per division. So it was like 3 times, like 3 to 1 almost advantage for the UK, which makes sense. And they just managed to take it as well with quite a few losses.
And if we look from the Axis side here and the Italian side, they didn't anticipate this invasion at all, I would say. They didn't defend Crete. They didn't see the strategic value that Crete actually had. So the defense of Crete was way too low. They had a huge, as you said, a huge army in Libya. I think, I'm not sure about this time, but 1 year later it was 500,000 men in Libya. But down prioritizing the defense of Crete totally.
Yeah, but Crete was also used as like an air base for the Axis forces to project air superiority into Eastern Mediterranean and Egypt during the push towards El Alamein and Egypt, right?
Yeah.
And as they just pulled back, it wasn't of interest anymore really for the Axis, right? So it kind of like overlooked from a strategic perspective. And like you said, I don't think the Axis forces expected this invasion.
No.
To be fair. That quick, at least. So, and then what happened after this? And this is the interesting part, because now we're in mid-June 41. Barbarossa has just launched, and now the Allied forces with the UK had just secured the 2 important islands in the Eastern Mediterranean, and now are looking towards a mainland invasion of Greece in the near future. But what they do instead of landing in Greece is that they land on the small islands outside of Athens. So, and this happens almost half a year later. So roughly in end of 41, early 42, they start taking the small islands outside of Athens and build, and it's not defended at all, actually. It's completely abandoned by the Axis defenders, who are just garrisoned up in the Peloponnesia and in Athens. So that is quickly getting taken and then being built up with harbors and build prepare infrastructure for a larger invasion force. Because those small islands, if anyone been in like Hydra or some of those small islands in outside of Athens, you know that it's not the most amazing infrastructure in that area.
Still,
but,
sorry.
Yeah. But so it was like a half a year of a build up in like preparing air bases, harbors, and that kind of investments from the Allied side to prepare for a larger invasion of Athens, basically. So that was the game plan. Yeah.
And as you hear me not speaking at all, Italy didn't put up much of a fight here. Not a lot of things happened. They saw it coming. They lost Crete. They didn't see the strategic value of it. They lost the Dodecaneso, like the islands. Rhodes, Dodecaneso, islands outside of Turkey. Didn't see this as a strategic threat yet.
No, and also from a naval perspective, we have much bigger navies than like compared to actual World War II as well. So both Italy and the UK have invested quite a bit of navy into the Mediterranean, and without running through the numbers actually,
I also haven't got the numbers, but
okay.
Go for
but
it.
the UK had their pride, like the pride of the navy, or like the main naval force here in the Mediterranean, which was and I'm gonna see if I can find it here. So the Royal Navy was 13 battleships, 3 battlecruisers, and 48 destroyers, all of them refitted and modernized to like the latest of what you could get in the early 1940s. So a prepared navy for this purpose. And with them, the Royal Air Force was also geared up. I mean, most of the Royal Air Force consisting of roughly 3,300 fighter planes at this point in time, most of which were in Spitfires, and then 700 close air support planes and 400 tactical bombers. That was like the Allied Air Force. Most of that being based out of Egypt and now Crete and Rhodes. So Crete and Rhodes were like the bottleneck of how much air power they could project into this region. but both of them are already built up by the Axis, right? So that was ready to like being taken over. And on the Italian and the Axis side, how was the Navy situation looking? Do you have those numbers?
Yeah, Italy got 10 battleships, 8 heavy cruisers, a huge chunk of light cruisers, 43 light cruisers, 84 destroyers, and 52 submarines. So a bigger force. But what happened, as we talked about...
But an Italian force.
But an Italian force. And with Italian high command. So with the loss of Crete, with the Allies holding Malta, we also had... Because as you... compared to reality, the Allied side had 2 to 4 carriers in the Mediterranean. They didn't need it now with Malta, Crete, Rhodes as their aircraft carriers.
Air supports,
in the Eastern Med and the Central Mediterranean.
Yeah, and I can just add also that on the air side, from the Axis perspective, Luftwaffe was a bigger air force than the Royal Air Force at this point in time. So Luftwaffe had 4,300 fighters versus the 3,300 on the UK side, 1,200 CAS instead of the 700 on the UK, but the thing is that Operation Barbarossa had just been launched.
Yeah.
So the attention was somewhere else on the Axis side. So out of that big Luftwaffe, it was roughly 900 fighters and 500 CAS that was active in this region. Then of course you had the Italian Air Force, but Italian Air Force that was there with roughly 600 naval bombers, 600 tactical bombers, and 500 fighters. So, I mean, and if you want to be nitty-gritty about this, like the UK side was quite a modern fighter force, but like kind of obsolete with Hawker Hectors in CAS and Whitley bombers, tactical bombers as well. While most of the Luftwaffe was very modern with the latest of everything, and the Italian was only modernized in the naval bomber side. That was where they put their investments, basically.
I want to lift this up to the strategic perspective just for a while to get the bigger picture. So what happened here was that, as you said, the Germans launched Operation Barbarossa with huge focus on the Eastern Front, which meant that the UK could feel safe. They knew that they won't launch Operation Barbarossa and do a Seelöwe at the same time. They didn't have the resources to do that. So the Allied could concentrate a huge part of their both Air Force and somewhat perhaps Navy down in the Mediterranean, and also their land forces, because they saw an opportunity here when the focus from the Axis forces were totally on the Eastern Front. And they did this with good precision. It didn't take long from Operation Barbarossa for this counter-operation to commence.
Yeah, I agree. And what was on the naval side, because then you think, okay, so it was equally, I mean, a bigger Italian Navy, but more battleships or battlecruisers on the UK side, but more ships in general on the Italian side. Couldn't the Italians have challenged that? But both sides were the Italians were hesitant to lose their Navy.
Yeah.
So the Italians stayed around the Italian boot with their Navy, while the British Navy, Royal Navy, was dominating Eastern Mediterranean and also moving into the Aegean Sea and like dominating that side, because now with the conquest of Rhodes and Crete, Royal Air Force could dominate the skies above as well, which would put, I mean, if the Italians would go in with their Navy, they would do so with bad air cover.
Yeah.
And that's not something you would do if you're not in a very favorable odds at the first point. If you want to commit your Navy, which is something really expensive, then you want to know that you have a good a good probability to win as well. Yeah. So it would be like favor UK thanks to the air bases from those islands, and that's why the Italians would let the UK basically dominate that side.
Yeah.
of the Mediterranean.
So the Italian strategy, seeing this coming into pass, that the Allies took, both Greece and Rhodes, not Greece, Crete and Rhodes, had to go to a fleet in being strategy.
Yeah.
So that was not fought out, but the reaction was we need to go to fleet in being, because if we go into a conflict here, we have bigger chance to lose the navy than to win, and if we lose the navy, we have no presence in the Mediterranean to actually counter anything the Allies do.
Yeah. And then, of course, yes, they could move down a huge chunk of Luftwaffe into Athens and the Peloponnesian, peninsula, and challenge Royal Air Force, but they wouldn't, because the bigger prize for them was at this point in time the Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
So, and that was the bet on the UK side. Like, the Germans won't get pulled into this Mediterranean campaign because they have a bigger fish to fry, basically. Yeah. And that was the bet, which also paid out from the UK perspective. So,
gonna move on.
Moving on to the timeline. So phase 2 of the Allied plan was then to take Athens. And this was like a bold move, because now they prepared the like a staging ground. So they moved 8 marine divisions now are moved to the small islands outside of Athens. So that we're talking about roughly 140,000 men strong force, with the Royal Navy going in as well, shore bombarding, with all the battleships just bombing the shit out of Athens. And then those marine divisions launched a naval invasion on Athens and managed to take it from the Italian defenders. I'm not sure how big that defensive force was. Do you have that on
Not
paper?
data on the defensive force of Athens, but the total men defending the southern part of Greece was 190,000 men. So approximately the same as in
a little bit
history.
bigger than the attackers, actually.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
But Italian troops.
but Italian troops.
So we won't have any Italian viewers left after this.
No, we don't have any Italian viewers, so it's okay. No, but no. So the UK managed to take Athens in April 42, and then in May 42 they launched an attack into, if you think about Greece as what, like, I'm not sure. This is reverse in the camera now, but. Southwest from Athens, you have the Peloponnesian Peninsula, I think it's called, right? So where Sparta is from, all
Let's call it Sparta. Make it easy.
That's because we get more viewers with that. Yeah. No, so basically, what happened was that Athens is like the lock that connects between the mainland of Greece and then the peninsula down to Sparta, if you will. So what happened was, once Athens was conquered, the UK army moved down southwest towards the peninsula and attacked the Italians there, and basically started to chase down that big Italian force, but had the momentum with shore bombardments, air cover, and quite quickly got the Italians on the run. And there were no real spearhead counterattack here from the Italians.
If I'm gonna take the Italian side here, the Italian side were really caught off guard here. Even though they could have seen the troop movements, they were overconfident. They thought they had the defense needed. They didn't think an attack could come this early, because this is early in the war. As you most of you know, the Allied industry gathered momentum during the war. The Allies wasn't the strongest in 1941 when France just felt. The UK was standing alone. This is when the US has entered the war, when the invasion came, but still they hadn't gathered as much of momentum that the Axis was really worried about it. So the Italians were really caught off guard. They didn't really defend well. The morale was low and the organization was chaotic.
And to be fair as well, like most of the Italian quality troops, I mean, at this point, the Italians did something not so historical. They actually did proper medium armored tank divisions, and those were up in Sumy in today's Ukraine,
Yeah.
and making a big successful pocket of Soviet tank divisions up there. So they were part of a Balkan attack group encircling a huge number of Soviets up there at this point in time.
Which also made this much more harder and made the decision making slower because they were having a lot of fun on the Eastern Front. They were really needed on the Eastern Front because the odds in this scenario was not as good in the early months and year of the war as in reality. So they were really needed up in Ukraine fighting against the Soviet forces, which also delayed the reinforcements down to Greece.
Yeah, absolutely. Italian command and control was all about the Eastern Front in that point in time. So, and also the Italian special forces, which was quite a few as well, they were also up on the Eastern Front doing work right at this point in time. So they abandoned the Mediterranean theater basically with those kind of spearhead units.
And another thing about the overconfidence of the Axis, another part of the world was actually hugely in the Axis favored because in this scenario we had Spain joining the Axis forces, attacking down the western coast of Africa, actually controlling the entirety of the western coast of Africa down to the Ivory Coast almost, and pushing into the Free French territory there. So there was a lot of things working for the Axis here, where they thought the Allies were preoccupied in different theaters than the Greece theater.
Yeah, and the Japanese were also very like doing their supernova in the east at the same time as well. So a lot of things happening simultaneously here. So, I think that was also part of the Allied plan that with a small force, without like a proper D-Day force, they could actually punch some holes here in the Axis defense because they wouldn't expect it or wouldn't see it coming, basically.
Yeah, and they didn't.
Because they still controlled most of North Africa, right? The Axis. So that was part of the Allied plan. So what happened then was that Italy finally capitulated in the Peloponnesian Peninsula, but they managed to escape out with most of their divisions. And if I noticed down correctly, they had 13 infantry divisions and 6 garrison divisions, which was that 190,000 men strong. And 2 of the divisions was surrounded and run down, but the rest managed to escape out of the harbors of the southern Peloponnesian Peninsula. Yeah, a lot of peace.
I'm just happy that you're saying the Peloponnesian Peninsula.
But what happened here as a reaction was, of course, like the Italians and the Axis wouldn't just let this fly. So there was a counterattack coming down towards Athens at the same time. So basically at the same time that was secured, the UK managed to move up their units back to Athens just to receive a counterpunch coming from the Axis, and they pulled units off the Eastern Front.
So from what I can see, they started to pull the forces from the Eastern Front in early June, late May, coming down for a huge counterattack in the 13th of May against Athens. And Athens is the huge harbor in Greece, crucial to supply an army big enough to actually withstand an Axis counterattack.
Yeah, and what basically happened was that the UK forces managed to dig into the urban suburbs of Athens and actually hold ground with a lot of anti-tank guns and shore bombardment coming from the Royal Navy and air cover from the Royal Air Force as well. So that kind of like combined arms and like defensive posture was made just in time to like receive the counterpunch and manage to keep the bridgehead to the main island. And that stayed like that in a defensive posture for almost half a year until the Allied moved into phase 3 which was like the real punch of
We
this
had
invasion.
also a counteroffensive in the Peloponnesian Peninsula. We had some uh, Axis forces actually landing there, but got kicked out from the peninsula. So we had some fighting there, but I
That's
think
true.
this was strategically a fantastic move. Looking into what happened into Poland and France with the Blitzkrieg from the Germans, taking a hold of a small strip of land, like the small strip of uh, Greece,
Mm.
right north of Athens, and defending a small strip of land, making sure that those kind of blitzkrieg tactics don't really work
Mm.
in urban environments and small spaces. Made sure that the Allies actually could hold with, I think it was a lesser force
Yeah,
in men.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We're still talking about those 6 Marine divisions were now reinforced to become 8 Marine divisions with 2 reinforcing, and then also a few garrison divisions coming up to hold like the urban tiles and the harbors in the Peloponnesian Peninsula as well.
yeah,
So there were some UK reinforcement, but the reason was the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy
yeah.
supporting those Marines and getting that local domination and firepower needed to defend it from the Axis counterpunch.
I was stopping the narrative here. So we had somewhat of a stalemate. The counterattack didn't work from the Axis part, and we're coming into December 42, January 43, I guess, where things
Yeah,
start to heat up again. And
yeah. So
since
no,
the
we were
Allies
in
are the ones with,
December 42 for you.
yeah, Allies have
And
initiative, you go.
yeah, yes. So this is where this is where the Allies want to reinforce success. So this is the classical: you try something, you probe, you see that you have success, then you want to reinforce success. So now the UK calls upon her allies, so to speak, and says, "Guys, get over here! It's happening." And what happens is that the main Allied armored force has been fighting a bit over in India and been like on a tour, but that has come back to Europe now and is ready to do some heavy lifting. So by December 42, we have 9 Allied armored division, medium tank armored divisions inbound for Athens to reinforce
Yeah.
that bridgehead. What the plan is now, and this is the beauty of it, is that the UK at the same time prepare a naval invasion from Athens to Thessaloniki, and in front of them is the whole like Italian and Axis army. So the idea is to do a surround naval invasion in Thessaloniki, and then from the left side as well,
Yeah, the western part of
make
Greece.
the western part of Greece and southern Albania, make a landing and like control like the main supply hubs on the west coast as well. So you make a landing on the east,
Yeah.
on the west, and then cut off the Axis forces. And that is
And
basic. Sorry, yeah.
yeah, and the Axis forces here are almost, it's over 300,000 men actually defending the central part of Greece. So from Thessaloniki, and I think it's Epirus or something, it's called there in
Mm,
the west, under them
yeah.
are 330,000 Italian troops.
Yeah, existing of 19 Italian infantry divisions, 6 Italian Marine Special Forces divisions, railway gun battery also in place, and 1 Bulgarian mechanized division as
Yes.
well. So and the Allied has also moved in like heavy artillery, railway artillery into Athens, coming out of Egypt to support this assault. So what happens now, and this is like a lot of things happening now in December. So the British has reinforced Athens with a few extra infantry divisions as well, coming out of El Alamein. what happens is that the UK starts to push out into the Axis defending forces without success on the 18th of December 1942. But on the 20th of December, all of the 9 tank divisions land in Athens.
Yes.
Quick to reinforce that attack. And they come like late into the party, but they are coming. But at the same time, you have the 6 Marine divisions inbound for Thessaloniki, and they land on the 9th of January in 1943. They land in Thessaloniki and conquer that harbor, which was only defended by a Bulgarian
cavalry division.
Cavalry
a single
division. I
Bulgarian.
don't know why they had a cavalry division there, but
no.
yeah.
Bulgarians.
Anyways, honor and glory to the Bulgarian cavalry division. But that one was thrown out, and then it's like an explosion where the UK basically secures a bridgehead and then pushes west towards the other landings that happen simultaneously outside of the coastline of Corfu and Vlore in southern Albania, which with 2 UK divisions, one outside of Corfu and one in Vlore.
And as always, the Italian High Command are slow to react to everything happening. So the reaction from the Axis are passivity. What do you say? Passive.
Yeah, they're passive.
They're passive.
They are on their heels, basically.
Yeah.
And what it's interesting here, the Bulgarians are not, because the Bulgarian mechanized division, they see this threat of getting encircled, and they makes a push for it through the Greek mountains and manage to escape before the pocket is closed by the surrounding British special forces. While the Italians, they still haven't realized that they are being cut off, or they don't care, because they're trying to punch back on the landing forces from the Allies. So they are fighting in the south and counterattacking, while they're being cut off in the back. But also, there's even more Axis forces coming from the north, right?
Yes.
From the Eastern Front.
So they are noticing.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
the Axis
what is
forces
happening,
are noticing.
Yeah. So now a lot of things is happening simultaneously. But basically, during the end of January, the tank divisions manages to push up, reinforce the battle, and push up from Athens north. And then in February, there comes a big counteroffensive in Thessaloniki from the Axis, reconquering Thessaloniki, encircling and annihilating the 7,000 UK servicemen as well.
17
and
again.
17.
17,000.
And starts to push the Marine divisions that have made this pocket, or like this thin line.
Yeah, so we're 330,000 Italian troops pocketed in the center of Greece without any access to any bigger harbor. So the supply situation for these pockets is horrible. But as you said, it's a huge army coming down, both from Germany, Hungarian divisions, I think it was, and troops moving from the Eastern Front. And this is, I want to point out to this for the Axis perspective and for the entirety of the war. What this meant is they're pulling forces from the Eastern Front, giving the Soviet Union an opportunity to both defend better, but also make minor counter offensives. So this is huge for the entirety of the war, even though we're looking at a small piece on the geography of Europe.
Yeah. So what has basically happened now? You have this huge Italian encircled army in central Greece. You have a small line of UK Marine divisions north of that, with one being annihilated in Thessaloniki, and the rest is defending up the mountainside and hillside towards that pocket. So they're just encircled, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then you have the huge Allied tank force pushing northward from Athens into that Italian defenders. but into like unfavorable terrain because it's very hilly and also a bit mountainous terrain type. And then now the Italians are deciding to make a move. They are sending out half of their navy to see if they can cut off this big Allied landing. So what happens is that in mid-February, there's a huge naval engagement with basically half of the Italian navy against this British navy, and the British navy sinks the whole thing and basically
and
pulverizes. Pulverizes the Italian navy. So what the Italians did wrong here was that they didn't consolidate their entire navy to fight the British, but they took half the navy and went out for the British and got annihilated, which meant that before they realized it, they then realized, okay, we can't send the other half now because that the same thing is going to happen. So they lost their ability to actually challenge the Royal Navy. But it was like a few sweaty weeks with the naval engagements happening or days, sorry, and it was uncertain who's going to win. But the UK won it quite safely and then secured the supply lines into Athens, so to speak.
So what happens here with the pocket in the middle by the end of February 1943, the pocket is beginning to close, and Italy actually loses 330,000 men compared to the 17,000 lost from the encircled from the Allied side. Of course, there was a few casualties or a couple of casualties in the battles, but that's not the huge part. The huge part is this 330,000 men pocketed and finished. And another interesting thing here is that Italy started to prepare an actual defense here. They put in 3 medium tank divisions, and this is actual proper medium tank divisions. If we think about Italian...
As in counterattack, you mean? Or
No, before the landings in Thessaloniki, we had 3 Italian tank divisions which would have been crucial and could even counterattack this entire operation. So they had 3 tank divisions, proper medium tank division, not the Italian light tank divisions you
not
think
spaghetti
about.
Tanks.
Not the spaghetti tanks, proper tanks. But again, overconfident because things didn't happen in half a year. They moved these 3 tank divisions away from Greece in perfect time for the Allies to make their invasion, and then they had to get back from the Eastern Front. And if you're commenced in battle on the Eastern Front, you're not just gonna pull back instantly. You need preparations, and it takes time. So those 3 tank divisions not being there could be the deciding factor for the Allied success in this invasion.
And also, to be fair, the counterattack from the Axis was very hard hitting, which took Thessaloniki and also like pushed the UK on like their heels quite quickly, but wasn't advancing quick enough to save the pocket in central Greece, because that got encircled quite quickly and they couldn't catch up. So that got overrun, and by early March 1942, the entire pocket was annihilated. 43.
43, we're in.
Early March 43, the entire pocket was annihilated. So we're not even. So that was kind of like the end of that, because after that, this whole pocket was then reinforced with more Allied troops, and more the tank divisions could go up to the front line and meet up with the rest of the counterattacking Axis forces, and it became like this huge battle outside of Thessaloniki, back and forth for a long time. But comparing to the historical timeline, where all of this happened before the actual Operation Husky happened in World War II.
1 year before.
1 year before. So in early March 1943, a few months before Operation Husky even started, all of this had already happened.
Yeah.
Half of the Italian Navy at the bottom of the Mediterranean, and a strong foothold in Europe for Allies, which is now growing to something that is not easily thrown out.
Yeah. And here the Allies are really playing the geography to their favor, because in the middle of Greece we have huge mountains, very
Yeah.
easy to defend, really hard to dislodge with armor divisions. Of course, you have uh, the shorelines
Mm.
where you have plains or hills, but still a smaller part to defend once again, giving a favor to a smaller force. So the Axis, as you said, came in with a
With
huge
shore
force.
bombardments and like naval dominance as well.
Yeah. And with an Italian navy at the half, at least, at the bottom of the sea. I think the other half
Yeah.
were sunk later on, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but that was at a later point
That
in
was a
time.
yeah,
But
we're not
yeah,
talking about that now. And I think it's an interesting thing here that still, while everything of this was happening, we still have 500,000 men, Italian men, defending Libya. So they were really, really scared to losing North Africa, seeing that as a huge strategic point, which it is. So
you
we'll
know,
give them
it's
that.
it's kind of like they still don't see this as the main threat for some
No,
reason.
they can't really grasp that Greece is the greater
Did
threat.
Yeah, they can't. They can. Yeah, it's like until the very last moment they can't really fathom that this is the D-Day.
Yeah,
It's happening. So they still think there's going to be an allied push in North Africa. They still think they are going for Italy or something else. But no.
yeah,
Now all of the punching power in the Commonwealth is in Greece with all those tank divisions,
yeah,
because that's like I mean, if you count away the US and India and those kind of things, like most of like the heavy hitters in the Commonwealth, like all of that combined, like armored forces, that's in Greece right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, taking the strategic look once more, I think this was a genius move. It was enabled by holding Crete. Without Crete, this wouldn't have succeeded. So,
No.
in reality, when the Axis forces really held Crete and made it into to this unsinkable aircraft carrier,
Yeah.
they could hold Greece with these numbers, like 200,000 men, without any problem. But without Greece, uh, without Crete, you could
Yeah.
invade Greece, and with holding Greece, you could take a lot of the focus from the Eastern Front, pulling troops really needed on the Eastern Front down to defend the Balkans early in the war, which made a
Yeah.
huge difference for the Soviet players trying to hold on and make good strategic decisions and fend off the Axis attacks. So I
Yeah.
think this was a genius move in many, many ways.
Yeah, I think that the fact that the Allied attacked when no one expected it, when all of the punching power was just on the Eastern Front, that was the first one, and they attacked where they didn't expect it to happen because most of the defenders were in North Africa or in Italy and not in Greece. And then also the fact that once they moved down to defend it, nothing happened.
Yeah,
And then they moved away again, and that's when the attack happened. So it was like lucky timing because those armor divisions, from an allied perspective, they never saw them because they were in the interior.
yeah,
And the fact that they wasn't there was just like by chance that they were back on the Eastern Front.
yeah.
So there were also some, luck might be a word, but or like coincidences playing in the allied favor here as well.
It was that, but I also want to see this as we had the perfect person taking on the Italian High Command. Really role playing the Italian High Command to the fullest, doing a lot of mistakes, missing things, being slow to react, and not really getting that punch out. Huge shout out to the Italian controller. Well played in the scenario, but
in the war game.
also I'm in this war game. I
But
see the commonalities with
yeah,
reality and the Italian High Commander.
but I think there was a sense of hybris in the Axis high
Yeah,
command as well, that they pulled the Italians. I mean, even though Italy was facing the entirety of, or like a huge, like a large chunk of the Allied forces in North Africa and the Mediterranean theater, they still got pulled into the Eastern Front.
Yeah.
I mean, to kind of overload the Soviets, with even the Italians joining the fight quite early, to be fair.
Yeah.
And that's not something that really happened in Barbarossa in reality, if I recall.
There was I think it was a couple of 100,000 Italian troops. I'm not sure if it was 200,000.
But maybe not the tip of the spear.
Not the tip of. I'm not sure here.
Oh,
there
okay.
was not.
Let the historians.
Yeah, it was not actual proper medium tanks, because I'm not sure if Italy ever had proper medium tanks during this entire war.
I think they had like less than 100. So they didn't.
It doesn't count.
No. All right. So I think that was it, right?
Yeah, we're ending somewhere in the middle of 1943. The Allies have conquered most of Greece, holding Thessaloniki, if I don't remember wrongly here.
There or just about there.
Yeah,
basically.
There's a lot of attacks, counterattacks, fighting in Greece, taking a huge part, not a huge part, but a crucial part of the spearhead in the Eastern Front, trying to dislodge this D-Day in the soft underbelly of Europe. And I want to give Churchill right here. I think that taking Crete and going for the soft underbelly early on was a genius move, and should and could probably have worked. But in reality, Allied forces couldn't take Crete, and that made this plan unviable in the real-time scenario.
Yeah, and now I haven't done most of them, like, just for your tank heads out there as well. So the Allied forces that landed was a combination, if I remember, of cruiser tanks, later Mark cruiser tanks, and then also started to get like some Lend-Lease Sherman tanks as well, and later some Canadian Rams also joined the battle, if I remember correctly. But that was like a progressive, and it was Crusaders also came later. So it was a mixed bag of Allied forces. But 9 tank divisions, that's a couple of thousand tanks, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a huge tank force.
Yeah, it's a huge tank force, but I mean, with mixed quality, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
is that the Battle of Greece?
That was the Battle of Greece. Yeah. Allied victory.
Cheers to Churchill.
Cheers to Churchill and the Royal Navy.
So what's the next episode? Have we decided yet?
We have not decided, but it's probably going to be either Asia or it's the second half of Barbarossa. I think that would be the two, or maybe the Battle of the Atlantic. That could also be an episode. But let's see.
As we hinted, there's a lot of things happening now in the alternative timeline. With a hugely successful Japan, we have, as you said, Battle of Atlantic, and as you heard in this episode, the Eastern Front with a distraction in Greece.
And we also had the huge Spanish conquest of Western Africa. Yeah, it was almost all the way down to
the Ivory Coast.
Like past Ghana almost. Yeah. So that was also happening at the same time. But maybe for another day.
For another day. If someone's still listening after 58 minutes, please like, subscribe if you watch this on YouTube. If you're listening at this as a podcast while cleaning your home or something like that, you could write reviews. What do you do on podcast? Yeah. I don't know. Do something
Give
good.
Stars.
Give stars. Something. Something. Yeah. Do the thing that you do if you like podcasts.
Yeah.
That was it.
I hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you on the next episode in a month's time, roughly.
Yeah. See you guys next time. Bye.
See you.